My friends, welcome to California's gold country, specifically Sonora, California, where in 1848, gold was discovered right here where the modern downtown is, in Sonora Creek, which in fact still runs under the downtown to this very day. The very same creek those early prospectors and 49ers used to pan gold out of. Literally, 49ers used to pan for gold right down there. We're back on another little side quest adventure, another little California road trip, and I could not be more stoked to be out here. Gold country is someplace that's very dear to my heart, not just because of the California history everywhere, and because I love the Old West and the gold rush built the Old West, but because when I was a kid, we would often take road trips to this part of the world, stopping at every historical location possible, and this is where my parents really stoked the flames of my passion for history. In fact, there's a historic highway appropriately named California 49 that snakes its way through all of the old gold country that I've wanted to do episodes on for years. In fact, it's right here under our feet. This is California 49 cruising right through downtown Sonora. If everything goes according to plan, today will be a little mishmash of locations on 49. Consider it sort of an exploratory mission, you know, dipping the toe in the water. Look at this place. The Sonora Inn, originally built out of stone, or at least the right half of the building you see there, in 1896. This is one heck of an old building. It's absolutely gorgeous. You can see it's undergone some modifications over the years, but it's still very much used as a hotel, and I stayed there sort of last night. I'll get to that in one second, but look at this across the street. This building is known as the Old City Hotel, and this gal is even older because she was built of adobe and slate, just rock and brick. She's been surviving out here since 1852. You're talking about the heyday of the California gold rush. And now the sign says this is a professional building. You got offices and stuff in there. But when Alonzo Green and James Lane opened this place up in 1852, not only were there tons and tons of hotel rooms in here, but downstairs there was a saloon, a billiard hall, a dining room, and something the history books refer to as private salons upstairs. Old miners, saloon, private salons. Who knows what went down in this building? Now we're going to be poking our nose around several historic buildings, but I'm not alone, so before that happens, we're actually going to enter the Sonora Inn over here. Because last night when I came into the lobby here, I noticed something interesting up on the walls. There are some photos of what the Sonora Inn looked like in its heyday in the 19th century. Boy, that is one big epic change for this building. Anyway, the reason I said I stayed in this hotel, kind of, is because the Sonora Inn actually is connected to another property behind it. You walk out of the back door of the lobby between the old stone portion and later wooden portion of the building. It's sort of two hotels in one. And then when you get back behind, lo and behold, my accommodations, the Hotel Lumberjack, where my beautiful miniature wife is getting ready. What's up, girl? You ready to party like it's 1849? Yes. Let's go. Just walking around a little bit more and admiring this, the Sonora Opera Hall, I thought, this looks old, and I was right. Particularly admiring the stone walls here on the sides, and it turns out the stone walls were originally built for a flour mill, which must have been gigantic, built by the two owners of the nearby Bonanza mine in 1879, but in 1885, the flour mill burned down, so they used the stone walls that were still standing to construct this gigantic opera house where they had plays and operas, I assume. Then it was used as a carpentry shop. It was used as a garage at one point for fixing cars. Closed at the moment, at least to me, but beautiful, beautiful old building here. The classic big mining town hall, you know, the big opera house. I love it. You don't think of miners wanting to go to the opera and seeing plays, but there were thousands of people here all over the hills finding gold. They had to spend their money on something. And there were fancy French restaurants here. There were oysters imported from San Francisco. Actually, speaking of food and speaking of all those miners, I'm just looking across the street here at Yanni's Grill, some Greek food, and next door, the Hong Kong restaurant. That is a good reminder that literally the miners came from all over the world, including China, of course. You had Greeks, Italians, people coming over from England, China, Mexico. In fact, it was a couple of Mexican miners from Sonora in Mexico that first discovered gold in Sonora Creek and named named this place. In some ways, it was a true melting pot, of course, not the fairest melting pot in the world. Notoriously, Chinese miners were treated very badly, restricted from mining, restricted in the types of jobs they could do. They were clearly more patient and good-natured than I would have been. I would have expected a kung fu uprising over here. In fact, Mark Twain would often famously defend the Chinese in the newspapers he was writing for. And speaking of Mark Twain, we are not far at all from Angel's Camp, where he discovered and wrote down the story of the celebrated jumping frog of Calaveras County, where he lived in a shack, tried his luck as a pocket miner, but hopefully we'll get to that a little later today. But anyway, this was a hip, happening place, very cosmopolitan, a lot of money flowing through here. Like, look at this iron fountain erected in 1904, shipped all the way from the East Coast. You had that opera hall, you had banks and saloons, fancy restaurants, like I was saying. And anyway, now that Allie is with us, let's explore a little bit more of this downtown, which, by the way, kept being a center of gold mining activity basically all the way up until World War II. And in fact, there's still people panning for gold in these surrounding hills all over the place. Of course, now the gold is in tourists. There's all kinds of fancy little shops out here. You can get craft milkshakes and sweet treats. A lot of little hat shops and boutiques, bars and cafes. We gotta find some coffee out here, but the first thing we're gonna look at right across the street from the Sonora Inn over here, it's a cute little shop we noticed last night. It's a little shop called the Thirsty Prospector. It's an ice cream shop now built in the old Bank of Italy. And the rumors are that there were tunnels built underground to discreetly move gold in and out of the bank. I was about to pop inside of there and go and see if they still have any tunnels, but first, the beautiful Allie noticed a bagel shop right here. Of course, I know nothing about the history of the bagel shop, but the rock walls in here give the distinct impression that this place is old. Not the bagels, though. I'm sure those are fresh. All right, we browsed the bagels. Couldn't come to a decision, so we've come back over where I was earlier at the local collective. Boy, it's loud out here on 49. Oh, this is cute. Look at this little boutique shop, little espresso counter. Perfect. All right, Allie got herself the Loco Latte and some gluten-free bread mix. They had gluten-free bread mix in there. Why? I have no idea. But we also met a lady from the visitor center next door who was grabbing some coffee, so I'm gonna take a peek in there. All right, well, the people in the visitor center were super friendly, so we spent quite a bit of time there, but we are now back on track, headed in to the Thirsty Prospector. And this is what I noticed last night. If we can get in the shade here, look at the sign. Beer, books, ice cream, and venture down to underground Sonora. Like I said, supposedly there were tunnels under this building when it was the Bank of Italy to get gold underneath. The real gold might be this horse. Look, wait, nah, he's useless. Can't even sit on him. Oh, look at this, there's a little bookshop involved. Oh, wow, look at this place. Holy cow, look at that amazing bar. It's crazy they would have to ship mirrors like this into the Old West around the tip of South America. Wild. Look at this, all kinds of antiques in here. Look at this little cute Wyatt Earp book. Oh, little kids' books and postcards. Look at all the Mickeys. Wow, look at the vaulted ceiling back here. Wow, lots of beautiful old books in here. Vinyl records. This is kind of awesome. Exactly the kind of place we love stumbling across on our travels. But look at this. Here's the stairway down. This is what I want to see. Dun dun. Dun dun. Dun, 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 dun. Underground Sonora. Oh, no way. Look at this. What the heck? There really are tunnels down here, and I could smell them before I could even see them. Look at this. Look at the wood framing down here. There's a little lock on this screen door stopping us from getting in the tunnel, but you can smell that goes back a ways. That is amazing. Holy cow, and look at this. Look at the bank vault door down here. So we are in the original Bank of Italy basement. Dude, this is some Old West history. Not that old. It's a newer Old West history because I think the Bank of Italy was 1919 to 1932, but still. The entire area underneath downtown was where they started the hard rock mining when they panned all the gold out of the creek. They started digging shafts and tunnels and pits all around, inside and outside of this town, up and down Highway 49. I really want to get back there. I want to see what's going on. So freaking cool, so unexpected. I love that underground is a bookstore, and a pretty darn good one. They got a lot of stuff down here. So cool that there's at least some place you can peek into the tunnels. Look, there's a little window down here and a little glass door. Apparently there's more underground Sonora to see. All right, hard to see through that window. Somebody set up a little display there. Spray painted some rocks gold. I love that. And then Allie just went up to this one and went, oh, and jumped back because look at who we found still trapped underground. Hey, would you move along? This is my gold. That is crazy. Clearly tunnels used to go underneath what is now Highway 49. And I just keep thinking, what's hiding in all the other basements? Some of these people in town could be sitting on literal gold mines. Dude, what a cool building and full of old cash registers. I love that old bar. Who knows how the heck they got that in this building if it wasn't here originally. Must have had to pull down a wall. Ooh, I love these old sea drawers. And look at this. It's freaking Mark Twain. He's been hiding here in Sonora the whole time. Oh no, he had an injury. Someone call a medic. At least he's still holding on to his stogie over here. Oh, Mr. Twain, what happened? Well, I was born in the almost invisible village of Florida, Missouri. We know that, Mr. Clemens. We know. Oh, wow, when you turn the corner here, look at California 49 headed up that way, the red church at the top of town. A lot of stuff to see here today. Too bad we don't have the entire day to spend in Sonora, but we got a little more time to walk around for a bit. Oh man, look at those pizzas in the window. Those look good. Flappy's Pizza Company. Those look like some flappy pizzas. Holy moly, would you look at the size of those bellows? They're half an alley tall. Oh, there's so many more antique stores and cool little boutiques everywhere. So much stuff out here. Look at this, you got the old antique school desk, got some dollhouse sinks down there, old school TV tray. I don't see a lot of mining stuff, but maybe they keep the good stuff inside. Probably do. Oh, wow. This place is packed. Look, again, another rock wall back there. Smells good. Smells like incense. Nag Champa? Look at this. You got everything from the sounds of Halloween to burning Nag Champa to look at these Victorian shoes. Those are incredible. Even an old broom for everybody's mother-in-law. Oh, my gosh. Look at that feathered hat. A lot of hats in here, in fact. Ooh, they've even got some real Stetsons hiding in here. I don't know why, but I've always wanted a real Stetson. Well, look who we have here. We did buy that Halloween cassette tape, but look at this. Allie just noticed this. Why are the trolls in jail? What did they do? They were leaving mean comments on a free video. Will they never learn? Speaking of trolls, well, actually gnomes. There's a little toy shop over there with a gnome on the awning. I love all these old buildings. I love Gold Country. This is clearly like much more 1950s here, or at least more modern. These big glass store display windows. Noticing a lot of art galleries in here. Couple bars, couple saloons still in town. Very fitting for an old west gold rush mining town. Look at this, even the little side streets are cute enough for a bride. Oh wow, look at this. This building erected by E. Lindbergh in 1856. First home of Wells Fargo and Company in Sonora. Dude, 1856 is pretty darn early in the gold rush. You could just imagine all the old Wells Fargo stagecoaches that would stop right out here, right on what's now Washington Street / California 49, picking up that gold bullion and headed off into the hills where the notorious stagecoach robber, by the way, Black Bart, used to operate in these very hills, chased down by the detective Jim Hume, who might come up again later. Wow, look at that old saloon building over there. Cute little flowers outside everywhere for spring. Prom dresses, Thai cuisine, and an arcade and candy store across the street. That's what you want in your cute little old-timey towns. Gotta have a candy store. Oh no, BJ's Cards and Collectibles is closed. What would we do without BJ's? Man, the amount of frozen yogurt, ice cream places, pizza, they have got it all here, including quite a lot of traffic. Keep seeing logging trucks go by, tow trucks, cement trucks, propane trucks, every kind of truck. But look at this, slug bug. Just kidding, you can't slug girls, even in slug bug, gotta slug yourself. Holy cow, this place is huge. I mean, most little gold rush towns weren't all that big to begin with, and usually fire or the slow decay of time would make them even smaller and smaller. So today, when you're traveling through gold country, most of the towns you hit are so small that, as my grandma so eloquently put it back in the day, if you spit on them, you'd make a rainstorm. But Sonora's big and seems to have quite a lot going on, including trying to start up this local radio station, K-Foot. I like that. Oh, here's another building, the Yosemite House, built in 1858. Once known as the Yosemite Hotel. We are very close to Yosemite National Park here in Sonora. It's been a hotel, a hardware store, a general store. All these surviving 1850s buildings have lived many, many lives. I mean, this place is so gorgeous. You can just picture standing out here on plein air, painting every building in town. In fact, walking around through town and peeking into some of these coffee shops, I've actually seen a lot of really beautiful paintings of the area. Little gold rush country paintings. I love these old-timey buildings that still have their little balconies and railings on them. A lot of old towns lost the balconies and porches. Look at that, there's City Hall over there. Don't know much about it except you can't fight it. That I do know. And then up here at the very tippy top of the town, way up the hill, is the beautiful St. James Episcopal Church, known throughout town simply as the Red Church. And I think you can see why. That is absolutely gorgeous. But look at this across the street. I think you can see why. That is absolutely gorgeous. But look at this across the street. They were telling us about the Red Church in the visitor center, but nobody told us about this beautiful old mansion. I love this guy cruising around on his little motorbike. Look at the church and the house. They match. This reminds me of Mark Twain's house. The one in Connecticut, that is. Not the miner's cabin he stayed in out here. Wow, today it's the home of Ron Rankin DDS. They do a general dentistry in here. That is obviously some mine owner's mansion or a boarding house or something. Look at the size of this whole barn. Beautiful. Oh, dude, I would love to live in a building like that. It's massive. If it was just a little more run down, it looks like the kind of place Pippi Longstocking would live. Oh, there it is, St. James Episcopal Church, the highlight of our trip to Sonora. And it's not Sunday today, but if it was, it looks like we'd be welcome. Look at that, there's even a little heart-shaped planter in the sidewalk here. Amazing. All right, as much as I love old mining camps, there are more to see very close by. So we're gonna leave Sonora now, saving more histories and mysteries for a future visit, and head on a couple miles down the road to the nearby Jamestown. All right, well look at this. We've made it to historic Jamestown, California, originally apparently called Jim Crow. A lot of miners came here from the south. This was founded in 1848 as well, the year of gold's discovery, one of the first gold rush towns. Seemingly much smaller than Sonora, but still lots of cute little things here. The little olive oil store, a Pizza Plus, which smells very good. And Allie just told me they have mini pizzas in there. Little wine tasting room over there, the Jamestown Community Hall. I just love all these historic buildings. Again, the little porches over here, the decor, or as Allie would say, the vibes. Wow, look at that. You got a really old California 49 felon station. Although technically in the modern era, the modern highway goes a little outside of this downtown. This was the old original Main Street. And look at this little Stars Hollow looking cute little park with the old drinking fountains. A fun pick opportunity. There's nothing's more fun than getting gold. I love this gateway to the southern mines because this is the southern end of the original sort of gold rush area. And this is cute. Look at this. It's not open today. Look at this little Jamestown museum in this old miner's cabin, blacksmith, barn looking building. Oh yeah, sure enough, it's an old blacksmith and machine shop from an old nearby ranch. That's awesome. Got little toy shops, coin store. No wooden sidewalks, but they made the sidewalks look like wood. Look at that old mercantile building. Check this out right here, the little grocery store. How adorable is that? This whole place is amazing. Got a little restaurant down here in this old building, the Smoke Cafe. This building we just walked out underneath the little covered sidewalk of was built in the 1850s, so a lot of Jamestown apparently is original, including this place, first established in 1859, the National Hotel. Originally built in 1859, damaged by fire and sort of rebuilt in 1927. One of the oldest continuously operated hotels in the Mother Lode. Yeah, I was just noticing as I walked up here, it's part of the B&B Association of America. They got a lot of diamond awards from AAA in here, so you can actually stay in this old hotel. Oh my gosh, look at this across the street. 1897. That is one sizable brick building. The Emporium Antiques over there. Look how cute Allie looks. Ah, looks like we're going in our 15th antique store of the day. Wow, what a beautiful building. Gorgeous. Oh my gosh, and it's even more gorgeous and bigger on the inside. This is gonna sound weird, but this building with these sort of like mezzanines on either side remind me of an old mercantile building in Paducah, Kentucky. Wow, a lot of really good old antique stuff. Look at this piece of furniture right there. Look at the size of this little ride-on pig down here. Looks like he's from an old merry-go-round or something. And then look at this fella. Virgil Earp? Oh, look at those. You know what those are? Those are framed potato sacks. Old decorated potato sacks. And then coming upstairs where there's a beautiful view. Look at that. Not only is there a stuffed bear in here, like a real one, like that is a real bear skin, but check out these old highway signs. Old state highway signs from California, all bullet hole ridden. This is awesome. We've been out here in the hills and mountains all day. That's the first bear I done seen. That bear's name is James. They named the town after him. Look at this old test your strength boxing bag machine in here. I mean, this antique store has got it all. They quite literally have everything and the kitchen sink. Wow. I've never wanted $795 so bad in my life. Look at the pair of them. Okay, this is so cool. Look at the photo of this place, the Emporium, back in the day. And then here it is now, looking pretty much the same. We're just getting some hot coffee for me in here. Piping hot caffeinated beverages, my friend Adam the Woo would say. I love it up here. The last time I was up here was in 2007 with my old drummer, Ben 9000. His grandpa lived up here. He was an old Korean War veteran. He was one of the Frozen Chosen, you know what I mean? Or Chosen Frozen. Tough old grizzly ex-Marine, and we came up here and shot black powder guns with him. It was awesome. Look at this. We've reached to basically the end of the old downtown. Look at that old hotel right there. Old brick hotel. The Jamestown Hotel. Appropriately named. Beautiful. Very quiet out here. It is May 1st. As of the filming of this, little Mexican restaurant, this cute old house down here, another little kind of general store at the end of the street. Oh, wait a minute. It's like another place with vintage stuff. Time travelers. New and vintage. By the way, they've had some pretty good prices in these antique stores, so not a bad idea to come antiquing down old California 49 into gold country. Anyway, I'm not in Jamestown just to look at old buildings. We could have seen those in Sonora. I'm not here just for the piping hot coffee. I am here for trains. Actually, for train. One train in particular I'd like to visit again. It's been years and years since I've seen it. I actually haven't seen it in person since the 90s of all things. Just outside of Jamestown, or actually really plopped down in Jamestown, is a historic park featuring sexy movie trains. And after we walk back through town and get Allie a miniature pizza, we're gonna go check it out. Dude, look at this behind the little park with that blacksmith shop I saw earlier. Look at this tiny little brick and stone jail. It says Branch Jail right over the doorway. It was finished in January of 1898 and built for a cost of $1,060. You couldn't even build a shed for that today. It's a Thursday in the off season, so of course it is locked with a modern lock and an old-timey lock. That is genuinely very cool. I only walked back here because they have a public restroom. Both Sonora and Jamestown have little public restrooms outside that are pretty clean. I mean, considering. Pretty nice. Always appreciate a good public restroom. Notice I said a good public restroom. Look at that amazing wooden building right there. It looks a little drunk, a little unsteady on its feet, but it's still clinging to life. I love buildings like that. All right, Hallie's cruising into Pizza Plus over here. It's mini pizza time, and then we're moving on. Oh my gosh, this pizza place is freaking cavernous. That's why it's called Pizza Plus. Look at this place. Got an old school salad bar in here, and look at the old champion horse to ride. Quarter machines. Oh, this reminds me of being a kid in the 80s. So many old pizza places like this back then. You know what I mean? Where have they all gone, horse? Oh my gosh, leave it to Allie to sniff out even more. And look at that old arcade carpet. How cool is this? Star Wars pinball? Okay, here's the big reveal. Allie got a mini 49er. Look how cute that pizza is. It's actually fitting that Allie got the mini 49er pizza because her family, or a big chunk of her family, moved here during the gold rush, old California Trail days, way back when. In fact, she has like a great-great-grandpa who was the first mayor of Benicia. I think some of her family used to own half of Colusa, California. I mean, they were early pioneers. All right, so this is interesting. There's a little restaurant here on the corner, the Willow Saloon, and apparently this is a new building. The original burned down in the 1980s sometime. But originally it was the Willow Hotel. President McKinley once visited this place, the widow of Robert E. Lee, and even Bat Masterson. And inside of here, even though the original building burned down and the windows are kind of smudgy, they have the original redwood bar that Bat Masterson would have visited. Now that's some Old West history right there. Wow, look at that amazing old mobile station. Beautiful old little gas station. And now we're gonna hook a ride uphill over here and head to the main attraction, Railtown 1897, the home of a very important train. Okay, well that took about 3 seconds to drive to. We've now made it to Railtown, a place I have not been since I was about 7 or 8 years old, all the way back in the 1990s, way back in the days of yore. And this is a very special place because this place is the home of some very famous steam engines used in movies, including the famous number 3 featured in Back to the Future Part 3. Look at this old railroad depot. See, the thing is, when the mines played out, they built this rail line here to haul out lumber. So the timber industry was very big after the sort of gold rush died down. So they've got all this historic rolling stock out here. Look at this old depot and everything. Hollywood would come up here all the time, like famously at the beginning of Tales from Wells Fargo. You can see a shot of the trains from up here. You can see them in Wagon Train and Laramie and all those old Western shows. A lot of times people from Hollywood would drive up here, even in the 40s and 50s, to film with these historic railroads. And of course, back in 1989 when they started filming Back to the Future Part 3. And at one time you could take the train from Back to the Future Part 3 from here out to the town, to the set that they built nearby, Fort Hill Valley, in 1885. But right before I got here as a little kid, so whatever year that was, it was actually struck by lightning and burned down. Nothing is left of it today. We will go out to the site, but we'll leave that for a separate adventure when Allie's not here. I shouldn't want to hike around with rattlesnakes. All right, in we go. Oh, we're not alone. Oh, look at this already. Little Back to the Future Part 3 DeLoreans, and look at this, the mug for number 3. Oh, wow, that's so cool. Little miniature trains. You got Thomas the Tank Engine here. Oh, I am so stoked on that, just seeing Back to the Future merch in here. Look at that. Back to the Future Part 3 t-shirt. I might leave with one of those. All right, we paid our $5 admission. There are guided tours, but because there's no train rides today or anything, I think we'll keep it short and sweet here. There's just one thing I want to see. Actually, the last time I was out here, I believe that number 3 was in pieces, right? They were just beginning a restoration on it or something like that, or it had some kind of problem. So this will be my first time seeing the Back to the Future train all put back together. Now, this is the back of the Sierra Railroad's historic roundhouse. I believe the roundhouse was built in 1910, maybe, if I'm remembering that correctly, but the mother lode short line's been in operation since 1897, so you know they've got some treasures in here. Like I said, the Sierra Railroad used on so many films and television shows, all of these different rail cars, probably this bad boy right here too. Look at that. That's literally a rail car. Look at that thing. Whoa, look at that steam engine right there. That's number 2, not the one we're after. We need one higher. One higher. Oh, here we got another one, number 34. It's even bigger. Look at the size of this thing. Oh, and there's the tour guide right there, Walt in his top hat. And behind him, there it is, number 3.
Built this railroad in 1897. Went into the movie business in 1919. A movie called The Red Glove. And it made hundreds of movies up until Back in the Future 3 was its last one, and that was 1991. Went to every country in the world, that movie. That's what really made it famous. It was already pretty famous from High Noon and all those other, Academy Award movies, And
a lot of Clint Eastwood movies.
Unforgiven, Rowdy H when he was Rawhide. We got a picture of him standing there when he was 20, now he's 94.
Yeah.
Yes. And Pale Rider and one other one.
Dude, this is incredible. Like you heard Walt say, it's been in hundreds of movies and TV shows and little productions and stuff like that, or at least dozens. Maybe he's using a little hyperbole, but this is it. This is the steam train from Back to the Future Part 3. This is the very nose that pushes the DeLorean down the railroad tracks across Eastwood Ravine, if you're thinking fourth dimensionally. It smells so good in here, like grease and Michael J. Fox. Dude, think about it. Clara Clayton, Christopher Lloyd, Michael J. Fox, Marty McFly, Doc Brown. These are our boys, Jules and Vern. That was a different locomotive. That was not number 3 over here. That stayed up here at the Sierra Railway. Look at that beauty right there. Oh my God. Ooh, I was just noticing that repair pit down there underneath it. Nice and greasy. Walt was just saying that this bad boy runs like a top now. They completely stripped it, took it apart, completely rebuilt it. This is amazing, dude. Back to the Future Part 3. I'm gonna touch it. I touched it. Oh, there's just a holdup. It's a science experiment. Oh, man. This is so cool. You see these guys in here actually working on number 3. Look at that. Climbing up there. Now this, I would like to drive. I drove that steam locomotive at Knott's Berry Farm. I don't know how. I don't know if anybody out there has any contacts. But I would love to at least take a cab ride in this. How amazing would that be? So there we go. This train is from Back to the Future Part 3. It's still here, right there. Railtown, 1897. And we've lost the guided tour. I guess we better go on our way. I don't want to walk away from this. I just want to start climbing on it. Someone will probably yell at me, though. Dude, look at this old blacksmith forge in here. Still used. All these amazing tools and just cranes and amazing stuff. On these, there's so many steam locomotives in here. This is number 28. I think this is the one that pulled our little excursion train I was on when I was about 7 or 8. We got here right after the town burned down from Back to the Future, like I said, so I did not get to see it. The train just went down to a rock quarry and backed up, much like it does today. But it used to go all the way down to the movie set, which is crazy. Dude, I need to get a brim like that. That's a sick hat. Man, this is a grease monkey's paradise. We're in the machine shop now. It's all belt-driven. It is still belt-driven. It was originally ran by a water wheel, as Walt is explaining over there. Look at this tiny little rail car right here. Little alley-size Model T.
Is a giant boring machine, or like a drill press. Whatever size bit you put on, it'll bore a hole in the wheel.
Boring. Look at this amazing little railroad hand car right here. Speaking of hand cars, I got the classic double pumper right there. Much harder to operate than you would think. It takes a lot of muscle to do that. I experienced that firsthand when I went to drive the streetcars at the Southern California Railway Museum. Ooh, and then this is the view. We joined the guided tour to see. Too bad number 3 is not poking out of there for the perfect money shot, right? The perfect default picture. There's that historic roundhouse, and all I can think of is there's the turntable right over there. Check it out. Can actually spin these gigantic steam locomotives around still to this day on that freaking crazy turntable. We'll have to get a closer look in a second. Our tour guide was telling us that some of these locomotives could weigh up to 100 tons. They built the turntable in 1910, and they used to turn the trains on there by hand until 1922, when they added a little pneumatic power, I think, a little air pressure or something like that. Now you can just turn it with a lever. Look at that. You can see the rear end, the caboose, if you will, of number 3 right in there in the historic roundhouse. Amazing. Amazing. Oh, Walt was a great tour guide. I love that he had the top hat on. It was like Sir Topham Hatt giving us a tour of the old roundhouse. And here, these are supposedly some signage, or some signs, some props from films made here on the Sierra Railway. Look at this. Got a movie room over here with a timeline. So there's Back to the Future Part 3. That's the last one for old number 3. But then he might be lying, because this says Adventures of Briscoe County Jr. Look at Unforgiven was filmed here. A-Team Season 2 Episode 5. Ba-ba-dum-ba. Dun, dun, dun. Little House on the Prairie, Bonanza, Gunsmoke, The Men from Shiloh, Death Valley Days. Oh, and then this is awesome. On number 3, they put these big diamond smokestacks on it just to make them look a little more old-timey. And this is the one that explodes in the movie from Doc's little special Duralogs that he puts in there so they can get up to 88 miles per hour. This is a prop from Back to the Future Part 3. Back to the Future Part 3. This was the dress stack. This is what they put on just for the normal scenes, just for the beauty shots of it in Back to the Future Part 3. And that's the exploding one right there. That's the special effects diamond smokestack. I wonder if they used this luggage cart too in the film. And oh, look at this old cow catcher right here. Sweet. Man, look at that. They've been in the movie business since 1919. Look at this fun pick opportunity right here. Take a pick on the tracks like an old-timey hobo. I love how Allie just made me take a fun pick there, and she didn't want a picture. Look at that Los Angeles sign over there. So they have little bits and pieces left from the old films. Like I said, I will be coming back here and spending more time here. But then again, I've been saying that for 10 years of filming Randomland, 12 years. And somehow this is the first time that I've actually made it, not back in the neighborhood. I've driven past, but the first time I've actually been in here, like I said, since I was a little kid. My brother Seth, who's single, ladies, was obsessed with trains when we were kids. So we went to every train place ever, it felt like. Any historic train you can name in California that was open in the early 90s, we went there, we rode it, we conquered it. But at the moment, one thing we cannot conquer is this sunshine. It's actually powerful warm up here in Jamestown. So we're gonna hop back in the car and head down the highway back through Sonora and over to our final destination, another gold mining town I happen to love. But of course, first I had to take one more stop and look at number 3. So awesome. Okay, so maybe a little Mandela effect here. This says it was running, number 3, until 1996 when it was taken apart for repair. So maybe it was number 3 we rode on, because I do remember them talking about Back to the Future Part 3 and how the town had just burned down. So unless it burned down later in the 90s than I thought, this might have been the train. Or it might have been the locomotive anyway, that pulled the train that we rode on. I know for sure the railroad cars we were in, those were from Back to the Future Part 3, which even back then was like, what? All right, it's beautiful out here, and I'm sure there's more stuff to see, especially on days when the trains are running, so I am going to try to come back. I really hope that when and if I do make it back, number 3 is running, because how sick would that be? Look at that. It's the Railtown 1897 cat. He's chilling on a bench, waiting for his train. Allie wants to make friends with him or slash her, whatever it is. Here, kitty, 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 kitty. Dude, it's awesome out here. I want to just start wandering around without permission, but I don't think that would be the best idea. Look at the size of these frickin' train cars. And what an amazing old depot. Beautiful, beautiful day out here. And look at this, Allie just got a lot happier. Of course you made friends with it. You make friends with every cat. Every cat everywhere, even the mean ones. They all like Allie. Aww. Buddies. Alright, well, we would stay and pet kittens all day. That's our favorite activity. But I'm worried that our next destination will close if we don't get there in time. So off we go, like I said, back down the highway, back down Highway 49, through Jamestown, through Sonora, and on to our next stop. Alright, here we are. We made it. Columbia, California. This is the modern part of Columbia. But what we're after is the old part, which is now a massive state historic park. And as you can see just from the outskirts of the historic district, Columbia was a sizable town, a very significant gold rush town. There were 5,000 people here in the 1850s, so it definitely earned its moniker, the gem of the southern mines. Crazy thing is, gold was discovered here in 1850, and literally by 1858, 1859, the boom was over. It never became a ghost town though, so many of the buildings were preserved. But you can see here just on the edge of town, look at this massive Masonic hall here. You can actually go inside and see all the creepy instruments of their craft. That's the coolest thing about Columbia. There's so many artifacts just all over the place. And then this across the street was the Fallon House Theater and Hotel. This was built right at the end of the boom, 1857. They don't use it as a hotel anymore. But look at this inside. An ice cream parlor. Ooh, and some beautiful air conditioning. Look at how fancy this place. Look at how amazing this looks. Things were very fancy in the 1850s, and with so much gold coming out of the ground, why not spend it? I love the architecture here. Look at this building, Eagle Cottage. I'm wondering if that was an old boarding house maybe, or hotel. Anyway, we're basically just cruising down the street here. Now, I said Tales from Wells Fargo would come back up. That's an old TV show. Not using the same name, but loosely based on Wells Fargo's greatest detective, the greatest detective in the Old West, Jim Hume. Well, not only was the real Jim Hume out here in and around Columbia, first as a sort of prospector and miner. His brother was out here down in Sonora as well. They were panning for gold, but later, when he was a detective for Wells Fargo, he caught Black Bart down near Sonora. And then his fictional television counterpart, Jim Hardy, was the star of Tales of Wells Fargo, which at the beginning of every one of those early Jim Hardy episodes showed this, the old Wells Fargo and Company Express office right here in Columbia. And oftentimes the stagecoach is out here, and you can see there's the Columbia stage line parked right out here in front of all these field trippers. This was often used in episodes of the show. They'd come up and use Railtown. There's a big shot of him, actually, Jim Hardy, riding alongside number 3 from Back to the Future Part 3 on the Sierra Railroad. Look at this. This is what I always remember from childhood, was coming here to Columbia and riding on the stagecoach. And my memory was that once you get out into the rocks and boulders over yonder outside of Columbia, that there were some stage robbers. Black Bart was still operating. Amazing, dude. Look at this. This is so cool. We gotta see if we can get a stagecoach ride today. There's a lot of field trippers, but if they stay away, we might have to climb on board. Okay, this is amazing. Normally, the stagecoach is like super crowded, long lines, always packed, a lot of people waiting. For some reason, we're the only two. We just bought tickets. We're gonna climb aboard right now. Look at that, we got coach seating. I am so stoked. This is awesome. Look at this. We are the only people on or in the stagecoach, other than the driver, obviously. This is amazing. We are cruising through Columbia in style. A little bouncier in here than you would expect. This is so awesome. It's nice to get a slow speed little tour of Columbia, the outskirts. You hear the horses clip-clopping up here. This is awesome. Going a lot slower than they do in the movies. That is fine by me. It's so neat and surreal to be sticking my head outside of a stagecoach. Look at this, you see all the rocks in the underbrush there. Would have been pretty easy for Black Bart to hide behind one of them boulders. He used to put fake sticks sticking out of the bushes, or fake gun barrels made out of sticks sticking out of the bushes, and tell people, you're surrounded. And then at the end of all of his robberies, he would leave poetry. He would leave a little poem there about himself and write poems to the newspapers, if I remember correctly. That's why they called him the gentleman stagecoach robber. This is so cool because I was worried that the stagecoach wouldn't even be running today because it is a Thursday, like I said. Luckily, there's a bunch of field trippers out here, so somebody thought it was worth hitching up the team. This is all right next to the old downtown Columbia, by the way, and every square inch of this was a mining claim back in the day. That's why you see so many pits and gouges in the landscape. That is all legit from the gold rush. A lot of paths in here to walk around and explore. Probably a lot of artifacts down there under that dirt. Oh, we picked up some steam. Oh, we're rattling away now. Oh, we are cooking with gas.
I feel like I'm in Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah, I feel so fancy. I feel like Mr. Darcy. Old West Mr. Darcy, in fact. Look at all those boulders. All the creepy little nooks and crannies where guys were digging stuff out with picks and shovels. I love it. Uh-oh.
Where do you people think you're going, huh?
We're going to Columbia.
Columbia? Well, why don't you give me all that gold you're planning to spend in there?
Well, I haven't got any gold yet. I'm headed to the gold fields.
We're gonna play a game.
Okay.
Put me in a better mood. This is called Laugh and Let Live.
Laugh and let live. Okay, we can do that.
If you make me laugh, I let you live.
Oh,
Give me
no.
your best jokes.
There you go.
My best jokes, and suddenly for the first time in my life, no joke springs to mind. The best jokes were always my report cards in school.
All right, we all get stagecoached right now and then.
Well, see, I got a chuckle out of you. Is that enough?
Okay, let's try a different game.
Okay.
Sing for your scalps.
Sing for my
Hey,
scalps. What do I?
that's perfect for you
What
to
do I
do.
sing? I'm a Yankee Doodle dandy. I'm a
Alright,
Yankee
keep
Doodle
going.
boy, a real life nephew of my Uncle Sam, born on the 4th of July. I've got a Yankee Doodle sweetheart. She's my Yankee Doodle joy. Yankee Doodle went to London just to ride a pony. I am a Yankee Doodle boy. Woo!
All right.
I did it.
Okay, I'll take it.
I sang for my supper.
I think you just saved both y'all's lives.
Okay.
I have to let you go and not even not harass you anymore.
All right.
I got a gift for you. You
Okay,
ready?
what is it?
I'm gonna sing you a song.
Oh,
You
great.
ready? Home in the woods.
Whoa. The driver just said, it's one thing to rob us, it's another thing to torture us. And then the robber was like, how about some poetry? And the driver goes, no poetry. Dude, this is awesome. All right. Here we go again. Whoa. Dude, this is awesome. I can't believe we're the only two. That poor robber standing out there all day in the sun, just waiting for someone to come by. Dude, normally, like I said, it's packed and there's a line for the stagecoach. So this is the first time I've ridden it since I was probably like 12 years old. This is exciting. Actually, Allie says we rode it with London, but I have absolutely no memory of that. It is, however, entirely possible. We did come here with London. We didn't film it or anything. That was just a little family vacation back in the day when he was little. He's home now, just getting ready to graduate high school. That's freaking crazy. I love seeing all these old buildings out here. Who knows how old each of them are. Look at this beautiful old house. I'd love to live somewhere historic like this. All right, Allie just proved me wrong. We have been here. We went here when London was little and he rode on top. And we rode on the inside, sweating our butts off. Oh, these long stagecoach rides. Oh, I'm sorry. One thing's for sure, this town is a whole lot bigger than it looks when you first walk in. All right, we're headed back downtown again. Look at some of these little miner shacks, little miner houses still out here. I love when they have the historical information in front of them. A home for immigrants, it said, making their mark in Columbia. Absolutely gorgeous down here. Look at the old outhouse. Mark Twain once used that outhouse. Oh, now we're rolling back in to downtown. All right, we made it. We made it to the Wells Fargo office. And we didn't have to sacrifice any of our gold. It was all hidden in my socks. I know, and then just like that, they were gone. Oh, that was amazing. That was over all too soon. Beautiful, worth every penny. Look at these horses right here. She said the white one's name is Mason and the black one's name is Colby. Look at him right here in front of the Wells Fargo and Company Express office, as seen every day in the 50s or 60s on Tales of Wells Fargo. Look at that. That is sick. Running from bandits is thirsty business. All right, so that's where we were out there, past all this panning for gold and a little catwalk between the boulders, just off kind of looping around the outskirts. The Wells Fargo Express office, by the way, also has a little miniature museum inside. You can see the little gold scales here, used for measuring your freight, ship stuff, literally from this office all over the Gold Rush area, all the way up to maybe Marysville or Yuba City, where Allie's from. That is sick. I've always wanted an old stagecoach strongbox, like a real one. There's a lot to see and do here in every single nook and cranny. Every single open building will have artifacts or replica things, props from the past, or look, stagecoach routes on the walls. I can't even talk anymore. I'm getting so excited. And there's so many cute little shops and little restaurants and things to do in here. Like, look at this across the street, the Clothier's Emporium. You can get your old-timey clothes right in there. You got the Douglas Saloon right here on the corner, a full assortment of choice domestic and imported beer and wine, handmade sarsaparilla. Looks a little bit closed at the moment. This is usually more of a weekend place, but I love this. Look at this. A little judicial court here. Kind of peek through the window and see what's going on. And then here is the most famous and best part of Columbia, some people would say. Two of the people we met earlier in Sonora used to work here. It is the Candy Kitchen. It is glorious. It is huge. It is fantastic. It is full of sweet treats. And then right across the street is Allie's favorite, the candle dipping area where you can make your own candle. Although I'm not sure if it's open today. I don't see the candle making lady. All right, well then first stop, we'll head into the Candy Kitchen. I could not possibly in 1,000 years explain in words how good it smells in here. There's every kind of old school candy, everything from black licorice to gummy sharks. And look at all the caramel and chocolate malt bowls and chocolate covered coffee beans and marshmallow bars, fudge and brittle of every description, little fruit candies. Look at the size of this place. They got multiple rooms here for kitchens. And up on the wall, in case of bandits or trouble, they got an 1831 rifle. This is not our first candy shop of the day, but Allie is headed towards her hometown. That's why we're on this little trip. It was her birthday yesterday, and we're headed up to go see her grandparents and everything. And so I think she's thinking, I better grab some sweet treats for Grandma. You're getting stuff for your grandma, aren't you? A few things, and the rest is for you. I knew it. Ooh, look at this. I got handmade marshmallows. You know who makes the best handmade marshmallows? Brett Iwan's mother, Fiona. Shout out to Fiona. She's got the greatest marshmallows in the West. All right, well, now that sweet treats were achieved, we'll head back across the street and see what we can do. Look how empty it is. There were like 5,000 field trip kids here 30 minutes ago, and now you could have one of them high noon gunfights out here. Put up your dukes, candy lady. All right, let's see if there's any candle making possibilities or if it's only in that side yard. Oh, this is awesome. This is perfect. This is like exactly like one of those stores you go into on a field trip and they just have everything historical in here. Got the books, the paper dolls, the replica documents, got the old replica guns and the gun belts. Stuff for the ladies, stuff for the gentlemen, and souvenirs for all. Ooh, they even have accoutrement. Accoutrement! Oh, I love that. You can see those old fireproof doors in the back. That's so cool. Look at this. Even little miniature ships. All that, little balms and stuff. Ooh, cosmetics and perfumery. Might have to buy myself a present for Allie's birthday. Dude, look at these cap guns. I was wondering why you never see cap guns. But the lady in the store told me they're outlawed in California. The only reason they get away with it is because they are a theatrical town selling theatrical props. Otherwise, they have outlawed cap guns apparently in California for toy stores. I didn't know that. Is that true? No, the guns are outlawed and there ain't no buts about it. See the barber pole here? You can see all these old fireproof doors are closed and some of the old-timey photo portrait gallery places. You take your old West picture in there. Fireproof because they put these big iron doors over the regular doors and then build the buildings out of brick. That happened because all the early wooden gold rush towns and mining towns would often suffer from fires. But clearly Columbia was booming in the 1850s and decided to go all out on that newfangled fireproof brick, which has served them very well. This isn't brick. And not very fireproof, and ironically, there's a lot of fire going on in here. This is the blacksmith shop. Right across the street, look at this. This is the Columbia Museum, the Native Sons of the Golden West Hall. And inside of here is a free museum. Look, you just walk right in. There are so many artifacts and pieces of accoutrement from the Native Sons of the Golden West. Still exists today, actually. Allie just told me that the Little House on the Prairie cast, or whoever's left of that cast, is coming here soon for a cast reunion. June 6th through 8th, 2025. Boy, that's a lot of actors. So if you're in the area in June, come by Columbia. Get your Little House on the Prairie on. Oh, look at this right next door. There's a little Chinese apothecary shop. Hard to see through that window reflection. This is giving a little info on what I was mentioning earlier, that the Chinese were forced to live in specific areas of the town. Eventually they passed laws that they could only work certain jobs. That's why the stereotype of the Chinese laundry, often that's all they were allowed to do. I love this. There's some Chinese herbs here. It's amazing. A lot of the Chinese actually contract hires from China, and in their contract it specified that if they died in California, their bodies had to be shipped back to China, so I don't see thousands and thousands of Chinese graves everywhere. But in Marysville, very close to where Allie grew up, right across the river, they actually still have a Chinese temple over there, and there's still one in Oroville too, all the way back from the Gold Rush era. I love that the blacksmith is in there right now, just chilling, listening to the radio. And I love that very realistically, right next door, you've got the livery stable over here with a bunch of antique wagons. And so let's take a peek really quick. And each one of these towns is someplace that I could, would, should, and want to spend multiple days if hotels weren't so darn expensive. Hotels are crazy money up here. That's why that lumberjack place was nice, clean. It was only like $97, which these days is very, very cheap. I'm sure somebody 20 years from now might see this and be laughing. $100? That's nothing. Chump change, fella. A couple of years ago, $100 would have been like the top of the line hotel. Now in California, most hotels are $200 a night. Crazy. But anyway, yeah, I could spend multiple days in each one of these towns. I'm sorry I'm smashing everything into one adventure here. This was an off-the-cuff combination of Allie wanting to visit her grandparents, it being her birthday, and me getting very claustrophobic at home. I love me some theme parks, but there's a lot of real America out there. There's a lot of real frontier land very close by, if you know what I mean. Hence our little diversion. Here's another free museum, a much bigger one, right over here. Let's see what's inside. Ooh, holy smokes, there's a nice lady in a bonnet in here and tons of artifacts going all the way back from the Native Americans through the early pioneers, both Mexican and, English pioneers, or I guess as we used to say, the white man, the Europeans coming here. Got a copy of the rules here, the mining laws of the Columbia District, a lot of old photos of the giant machinery that would have been all over these here hills. There's the pans right there for panning. Then they would do placer gold mining, like digging it out. So much hard rock mining went on, and then eventually hydraulic mining with big pressurized water cannons that blasted away whole sides of hills. Oh, there's one right there. There's an early nozzle right there for blasting away the hillsides. Allie and I went up to Malakoff Diggins once, which is also kind of near where she grew up. Still to this day, you can see whole entire mountainsides just blasted away by the hoses, which silted up the rivers she grew up next to, the Feather River, the Yuba River, and caused them to constantly flood. Look at this. They have a big Cinco de Mayo display set up here because apparently Columbia is one of the first places, if not the first place, that Cinco de Mayo was celebrated in California, at least. Amazing. Oh, Allie found a little store over here. Books, stationery, and fancy goods. She said they have little teas over here, like sarsaparilla tea and jams and jellies, all the little things that an Allie could wish for. Tea, herbs, spices, jars, a peach jam. There it is, sarsaparilla tea. You gonna get some?
Yeah.
You like tea?
Yeah.
Oh, this is amazing. Look at all this stuff in here. You got the wooden swords, rubber band guns. Ooh, even a whole second wing over here with quilts and calico. Old gold rush era motorcycles. Yes, sir, that's a lot of cloth. And darn, it's yarn. Dude, I might need to get some more coffee. But look at this. See this building that we were just in, that little store? Built in 1854 by the jeweler L. Jamestown. Can't read that name. You can read it for yourself. 1854. It's a long time ago, my friends. A long time ago. Some more little open stalls across the street, I think, to take your old-timey photos over there. Some more emporiums and little shops. Then look at this. The City Hotel. Still in operation. Waiting for you. It looks like they got a restaurant in here serving lunch and dinner, and more importantly, seasonal delicacies are on hand. Oh wow, peeping through the windows, it looks beautiful in there. Wait, I shouldn't be peeping, because then I'd be a peeping Tom. Allie just told me there's gluten-free stuff here. I don't know if you could stay in this hotel. Probably not. Most of the time the old hotels are just restaurants or saloons or something like that. But if you could, I would love to stay here and have some soup du jour. Not open yet right now. It's been closed for lunch and not reopened yet for dinner. There's also a little saloon over there, the What Cheer Saloon. So a lot to do. There's a little leather shop across the street here. You can see all the Cinco de Mayo flags everywhere. Those are not normally here. Get yourself a cowboy boot or a leather belt. Oh wow, what a gorgeous shop. Or even a sombrero. Oh my gosh, it smells so good in here. Who knew dead animal skin could smell so amazing? I wish they could bottle this smell and just release it into my house. I love it, man. I love places like this. Anytime you can have a modern business even inside of a building like this so that the building gets preserved, awesome. But if you can have some sort of historical business or historical adjacent, you know, they would have had leather shops back in the day, even better. All right, well, we're just cruising around for a while, looking at all the cute little houses and the old firehouse, which, by the way, was suspiciously empty of fire engines. It's just the perfect day here. Random Thursday, May 1st, 2025. The chillest day in Colombia ever. I mean, it was crazy when we first pulled up. Field trips everywhere. But at the moment, I mean, look at this. 360-degree view. Nobody around but us, some horses, and a few stragglers over there on the sidewalk eating at a cafe. This is amazing, the little waterway they built for themselves, a little creek running through town. I bet they used to have some dams, get some water power going, probably run some mills and things. We're just scratching the surface now, sort of looking at the touristy modern part of Colombia, not digging deep into the history. Basically, every one of these mining towns was located on a creek or where they could find water, because they needed water to wash away all the dirt, soil, and rocks and get at the rich stuff over here. So this is the most important resource up in these foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains. And really, it still is. I mean, the eastern Sierras are completely dry because Los Angeles is still stealing all their water. Ooh, blankets, tools, tobacco in there. Ooh, you can get some tobacco over general merchandise, a little grocery store. I love those tall doors and the big fireproof iron shutters for them. I just love buildings like this. So cool. Ooh, look at that. There's even a little root cellar, a little basement down there. Creepy. Oh, here we go again. Allie says there was a sign that said they had gluten-free stuff in this little market. I love that there is a full-on little baby grocery store in here. They have gluten-free flour. I can already see that. Literally fresh vegetables and even some Popeye spinach. Look at that. That is not just a display. There are actual modern goods back there. We got fancy cheeses. Okay, I wasn't expecting this. Probably not the most interesting part of Colombia, but hey, I'm hungry. I'm looking for a snack. Dude, this place is fancy. They have a lot of gluten-free stuff, actually, and they've got some escargot shells. They've got everything. French bread. Like, who knew there was such a fancy little grocery store right here in the old mining town of Colombia? It was genuinely unbelievable how much stuff there. Here we go. And now we're on the streets you can drive modern vehicles on. I got so used to not seeing cars for a second. Horse-drawn vehicles only down that road. Just love places like this. Old historic towns, Colombia, Tombstone, Arizona, places like that. I always get so jealous. Like, I'd love to live in one. I wish they'd put Hannibal, Missouri back to its old-timey ways. That's another place that would make a heck of a great historic town if they would lean into it just a little bit more. Especially since you have the modern levee there and the whole... Why am I talking about Hannibal, Missouri? We're in Columbia, California. Now, it's possible, even probable, that Mark Twain did himself come to Columbia, California. Speaking of Hannibal, Missouri, the boyhood hometown of Mark Twain. But the bulk of Sam Clemens' time over here in the Sierra foothills was spent just up the road a little ways, just outside of Angels Camp, California, on a place called Jackass Hill, in the cabin of his friends, the Gillis brothers. Now, the cabin no longer stands, but there is a replica cabin located right on the same spot, and the replica was supervised by one of the living brothers. That'll probably be our final stop, at least with you guys today. But first, we need to find the candle shop, the other candle shop, because although she's pretty good at putting up with disappointments, I mean, she's married to me after all. I think if we leave Columbia without a candle, we might break Allie's heart. Look at this. Absolutely amazing. Apparently a weekday in May is the time to come out here, man. Now, for a split second, I thought one of those high noon gunfights had broken out. I thought I heard gunshots, but what I was actually hearing was a loud bang of the old-timey bowling alley in here. You can hear that hard ball from all over town. Uh-oh, wait a minute. I see trouble. Well, what are you doing here, son? This town ain't big enough for the two of us. What are you talking about? Clearly it is big enough for the both of us, but if you want to fight, I'll make a fight. Well, then you better commence your fighting, mister. Oh, darn Southern Californians think they could come up in my mining town and defeat me. Dude, it is absolutely incredible that we have this whole California ghost town, because most people would probably call it that, even though technically it never was. It's never been abandoned. Pretty much all to ourselves. This was amazing. Allie's loaded up with treats. I'm loaded up with history. We got to bring you guys along for the ride. Freaking awesome. Anyway, we eventually made it out of the 1850s and over to the Seven Sisters Soap and Candle Company. Allie's peeking inside to see if they're doing any candle making today. And then we'll move along to our final stop. Well, no candle making at the moment. But looks like nobody needs to make any candles today, because look at how many are sitting in here. Holy cow, you could light up the whole town. Oh, just what the old West miners would have seen. Aliens. Oh, they could have used these though back in the day. Bath bombs. All right, and now comes the hard part, my friends, because I always want to keep the camera rolling literally all day, every day, especially when I'm in a place like this. But at some point, we've got to stop. Not this point, though. I wouldn't be the insane Twainiac I am if I was driving California Highway 49 and not stopping to visit our next location and final location, just outside of Angels Camp, California, Mark Twain's cabin. And here it is, 1 mile uphill off of California Highway 49. This is the Mark Twain cabin, or maybe better called the Mark Twain replica cabin, or more accurately, the Gillis cabin, because it was the Gillis brothers that came up and built this cabin here. There were several Gillis brothers. There was Steve, Jim, and Bill Gillis up here with their friend Dick Stoker, hanging out, pocket mining, which is looking for leftover gold after the main gold rush. Steve Gillis had worked with Mark Twain at the Territorial Enterprise in Virginia City during the Comstock lode boom, and then Mark Twain became a newspaper reporter in San Francisco, ticked off the cops by writing about how unfair they were to the Chinese. In addition to that, he owed some money, wasn't having any money rolling in, and basically came and played hooky out here with the Gillis brothers and Dick Stoker, and it was down in Angels Camp. He heard that famous story about the jumping frog, and stuck in this cabin in the rain. He had plenty of time to jot it down in his notebook, and later turned that into his first big successful story he was able to sell. Gave him a little bit of fame on the East Coast, sort of paved the way for his eventual journey out that way, where he was a newspaper correspondent that went to the Holy Land and to Europe back when that was not an easy thing to do. That trip became his first book, The Innocents Abroad, and then his second book, his second proper book, was called Roughing It, which includes quite a lot of information about his time up here on Jackass Hill. This was sort of a waypoint during the gold rush, being between Angels Camp and Sonora and Columbia and all these towns around here. And there were mule teams up here, so apparently that's why it was called Jackass Hill. You had all kinds of donkeys and mules and horses and stuff. And today it's just a little replica cabin. The original cabin was gone. The wood was carted off, probably for firewood by different neighbors and stuff like that. But one of the Gillis brothers was still alive when they built the first replica here on the Mark Twain Bret Harte Trail. And apparently, from everything I've heard from Twain historians, the rock chimney was a ruin, but the rock chimney was still here when they came to build the replica and use some of the original stone and rock from the chimney that would have been here in Mark Twain's time to construct this. Now I'll come out here again and tell a more full version of the story. There's plenty of Mark Twain haunts to explore. And I've been here many, many times before, both as a kid and then later as an adult. I've brought London here, I've been here with Allie before, but I don't think I've ever managed to film it for Randomland. And so I'm always getting comments like, did you know about Mark Twain's cabin? So I just thought we might as well wrap things up here for the day. And the perfect place. So I just thought this was the perfect place to sort of wrap things up for today. I know this episode has been overly long, but it's a heck of an adventure. Look at this. This Mark Twain fan is freaking stoked to be back out here. I know you probably read Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn in school. His first two books were more sort of creative non-fiction books. So The Innocents Abroad, that's a good one, and Roughing It. If you're only gonna read two Mark Twain books other than Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn, I highly recommend those books. If you're interested in history, if you're interested in the 19th century and travel, or if you have a good sense of humor, because that is the reason Mark Twain was known as a humorist. Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn are amusing. I wouldn't say they're very particularly funny, but his first two books, Innocents Abroad and Roughing It, very funny. Laugh out loud, funny. They're a product of their time. They're from the 19th century, so don't go in with, you know, your modern judgments. But yeah, those books are definitely great. Mark Twain spent quite a bit of time up here at this very spot up here on Jackass Hill. Today, it's right in the middle of a neighborhood. There are little houses scattered around all over the top of this hill. Even in his time, there were neighbors up here. There was a pair of sisters, which I believe he described as, well, more politely than ugly, but not great looking sisters. I believe there was actually a pair of sisters up here that Mark Twain would go and make love to, which is 19th century slang for flirting with. He'd play him songs on an old guitar, so definitely some crazy adventures up here. All right, guys, Allie and I are gonna take some fun pics out here. We're gonna have a little picnic lunch, and then we are going up to her hometown of Yuba City, another old-timey gold rush town. But as for us, our journey today, it is sadly over. Please do me a favor, check out the links down below. If you wouldn't mind, it would really help if you'd consider joining our Patreon. That is the only thing that fuels these videos. We've got a merch store as well and all that kind of stuff. Everything is pretty much DIY. We try to operate our little shop ourselves, which means shipping can take a little extra time. It's not Amazon, but we appreciate every single person who buys one of these sick hats I'm wearing or joins us on Patreon for the bonus podcasts and things. You guys are the ones that make these adventures happening, including just by watching them, especially watching them all the way to the very end, which makes you a member of the All the Way to the Very End Club. I love you guys. It is time to end the video here. We've made it to the Mark Twain cabin. We've done our duty. I've got to keep cruising down the highway, but it's time for you to go home and sleep well. Wait a minute, what's that? What's that? Sticking up out of the dirt. Something's glittering down there right in front of Mark Twain's cabin. Oh my gosh, it's gold. I've found Mark Twain's gold. It's a fat gold nugget. We're rich. Maybe I won't need you to join Patreon after all. This is amazing. Wait a minute. That ain't gold. That's fool's gold. Oh no. I'm a fool. That is a freaking turkey. That is a freaking turkey. That's a big old Mark Twain turkey right in the road.
Oh my gosh.
Get out of here, you turkey.
They're so funny. I've never seen one of them.
Get out of here, you turkeys. It's barely been Easter. Thanksgiving ain't for a while yet. Go home and sleep well.